All right, we're live. What's up, everybody? This is Chris, aka Born on 11970, and I just wanted to mention this because I think when you actually apply logic to situations, you'll see how ridiculous things really are. And if you have been watching my videos, or basically it doesn't matter because I'm sure in certain areas of this country and maybe even in the world, um, but let's just stick with the United States of America Corporation. If you have been watching the news lately, you'll see that many areas they're making masks mandatory for people to wear. Now, some places the police aren't going to comply with any orders that are unlawful. There have been people that will be not allowed in stores or had the cops called on them. I've even had subscribers mention this. Whether you believe in this or not is not the thing. But I want you to think about this. So, as of yesterday, many places in this country, and I know it's not all, but many places in this country all of a sudden mandated that people wear masks for their safety. And I'm already seeing on Facebook people arguing and saying how it's for your safety and it's going to keep everybody safe and how everybody's going to be okay. And let me ask you this. 2 days ago, before this was mandatory, were people standing in line buying things at the stores? Did anyone panic at that moment? You notice how as soon as they make something mandatory and say it's for your safety, that all of a sudden people are like, oh my God, we need this. But just a couple of days, weeks, or even a month ago, nobody had a problem. So what changed? In the span of 24 hours from the day before this particular item became mandatory and the day before it was ever even discussed. The difference is what they program in your mind. So people were having no problem going shopping, going to the beaches, going all over the place. But now all of a sudden, because the government says in certain areas that it's mandatory to wear these masks because it's going to keep you quote unquote safe, all of a sudden people are panicking and saying that they absolutely needed this. Where were these people 24 hours before that happened? Notice the difference of, like they say, what a difference a day makes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to tell you how to think because I can't do that. People are set in their ways, and many people will not listen to alternative points of view. You see it here on YouTube, you see it in the media, you see it in politics, you see it everywhere. And one of the biggest quotes I live by is when you argue with a fool, the only thing that you learn is there are two fools in the conversation. So I'm not here to try and convince you to change your belief system. If you can't do your own research and your own due diligence and at least question things and you're just going to believe everything that you're told, that is your choice. I wish you well with it, and I hope it ends up being well for you. But for those few people that will question things, that will research things, that will verify just to make sure something's true, who will not just do something like they're told. Like if you know anything about internment camps, the Nazi soldiers were just doing what they were told. Just because you are doing what a law suggests does not make that law right. So many people are talking about racism these days. Well, back in the days where slavery was law, people complied with it. So many people who probably didn't even agree with it complied with it. So we can be a society of complicit people who do anything they're told of them, whether it's right or wrong, or we could start to think in a different way. Now, people like myself and others who tell you to question things are slowly being phased out. One day we're all going to be gone. Now, I don't mean from this earth. I just mean from our ability to be able to speak out. And one day those voices will be extinguished. And that's happened throughout history. Every time people tried to warn people. And remember, it is always the few or the one that tends to change what the many were told or thought was always true or right or just. It only takes one person to change the world. But the world is trying to teach you to follow what everybody believes or what everybody's told, because if everybody believes something, then it must be right. Well, hundreds of years ago, if you wanted an operation, they didn't have anesthesia, so they had to either give you alcohol or knock you unconscious. That's what the masses thought. Do you think that's a wise idea now? Aren't you glad somebody came along or some group came along and invented anesthesia? So the world is trying to teach you the opposite of what reality and logic should dictate for you. And it's your choice to follow with the masses and follow the herd and follow the sheep to slaughter so others can benefit off of your labor. Or you can think for yourself and think outside the box. Because I'm thinking about, okay, they're making masks mandatory, which I will not comply to. And if that means I can't go to my favorite stores anymore and not give them my money, so be it. Because you want to hurt a business, you don't protest if you go in and buy something from them. You protest by not giving them your money. But YouTube's going to block conversations like this. Because like I said, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, they made the masks mandatory because they're concerned about people's health. Well, what about the day before they made it mandatory? Were they not concerned about people's health? What about the week or two before they even thought of it? Were they okay with everybody going out? You see all the people waiting online to be tested. Are they all 6 feet apart? You see all those riots that were going on. Were they all 6 feet apart? Logic should tell you to question things. Not because everything's wrong. Although some things can be. But they may be wrong for you. And just because something is law does not make it right. Because if you look throughout history, many dictators, many presidents, many kings, many people who ruled nations had laws that were unjust and unfair. So just because something is law does not mean it is right. And if people do not stand up for their rights, one day you will no longer have the ability to do so. So all I'm saying is think for yourself. YouTube's going to block this. I mean, like I say all the time, yes, they're going to take the ad revenue. No, I don't do it for the money. But yes, would I like to make some money considering I've been out of work for 3.5 months? Absolutely. But you notice that even though I know for a fact, just like the video I made earlier today, they will automatically take it off of ad revenue and I will get nothing, I continue to speak out. Because trust me, it would be so much easier in my life if I chose to not say anything and just live my own life. But when you are a compassionate person and you have empathy, you're supposed to help the world. Not just feel sorry for it, not do nothing, but do what can make your life uncomfortable. Martyrs are martyrs because they suffered for others. And even if you're a religious person, you know, your Savior, if you believe in Jesus, and I'm not saying whether you should or not, because that's not for me to decide, but his ultimate thing, whether it was a real-life situation or just a story, he sacrificed his own life to save the lives of others. People are being way too selfish these days. And if you don't think that's going to come back and bite you, well, you're not researching history. Time and time again, the people have been treated unfairly by unjust laws that later on people say is unfair. And you see all the people now talking about how there's racism and all this stuff. Well, you know, all these righteous people in Hollywood saying about this stuff. Well, a decade ago, where were they then when they were making all those movies? Like, for example, when they made Blazing Saddles back in the 1970s, how many of those actors protested and didn't film it because they felt it was racist? So they didn't have a problem with it then. You cannot look away with a blind eye because you're getting yours, and then later on, whether it be days, weeks, months, or years, or decades later, sit there and judge people. I mean, you can, but people really need to start thinking. Because the thing about free will is anything can change. Or nothing can change. It all depends on what you do and don't do. And if people don't fight this, and I will make this very clear, when I mean fight this, I don't mean physically. Like if you have, God forbid, have cancer, you're going to fight that cancer. Doesn't mean you're going to take it and punch it in its face. You're going to fight it. So when I mean the word fight, I don't mean go out and hit somebody. But what I'm saying is if you don't fight for your rights, one day your rights will no longer be there. And you cannot complain about something you were complicit with because it was a law. Sometimes you got to make a stand. Sometimes you have to make your life a little uncomfortable for what is right. Sometimes you got to make a step backwards to make 2 steps forward. And Florence says they're trying to erase history. Well, if people stay silent, they're going to achieve it. So it's everybody's goal to not allow that to happen. Your voices will only be heard if you speak out. If people do nothing but feel sorry and cry and feel depressed and get angry and do nothing, evil thrives when good people do nothing. I've been warning people since 2011. There are many people that have been warning people way earlier than that. This has happened throughout history. Remember, history is his story. So if you want to change the world, you better start changing yours. And I don't mean anyone in particular. But the world is not going in a loving direction. It's not going in a unified direction. That doesn't mean it has to continue that way. If you're driving towards a cliff, the only way you will fall off that cliff is if you continue to go towards it. Many people think, well, I'm already headed in that direction. There's nothing I can do. Or it's inevitable. No, you can stop. You can turn around. You can jump out. There's many things that you can do. If you do nothing and the car's heading off a cliff, well, guess what happens to you? It is all a choice. And I'm really hoping you all choose to do more than just listen to somebody like me who's been talking about stuff like this and similar things to this for almost a decade. The choice is yours, ladies and gentlemen. What you do with your future will be determined by what you do or don't do now in your present. And you have to think outside the box. You have to think differently from the masses. The masses are being told, the masses are being led. Whether you believe the world is round or you believe the world is flat, at one point the masses thought the world was flat. Now the masses believe the world is round. What changed? People's thoughts. You could be the masses and just follow along because it's easier, even though it's leading you to your own demise, your own poverty, your own hatred, your own depression. If you enjoy just getting enough scraps to survive, well then keep being in the mainstream's viewpoint. I can't be the only one that can think outside the box and think logically. And I know I'm not. Lose the fear or lose everything. And trust me, the banks, the governments, the corporations, they are counting on you being afraid. They are counting on you to do nothing. Because that's what most generations did. Until it got to the point where people had to murder one another. Is that what we're waiting for? Another time for people to murder each other? Because remember, ladies and gentlemen, like the game of chess, the king and queen send out their pawns to do all the dirty work. They don't send themselves out into battle. So if we ever wait for... I mean, look at the Great Depression. What got us out of the Great Depression? Some will say the main thing was World War II. Well, do you think the president was fighting in the front lines? Do you think any kings or queens or anyone in power was holding one of those guns defending their nation's freedom? Or do you think they were sending your sons and daughters, your grandmothers, your grandfathers, your friends, your co-workers, your fellow humans? How are we called human if we're losing our humanity? Just because you're on a path does not mean it's the only path. Sometimes we have to learn on a path what not to do. So the world is showing you, ladies and gentlemen, you're heading towards a really cruddy area. Do you want to continue that way? Because if you do nothing, you're headed there. And we're going to take you there. And it's going to get worse. Or you could take hold of the wheel. You know, there's a song by Incubus called Drive. And for the longest time, I loved that song until I heard it recently and I understood it for what it was. Hold the wheel and drive. In other words, don't let somebody else take control of your destination. Will you choose water over wine? Well, what is water? Water is pure. It's good for you. It's healthy. What is wine? Makes you feel good, gets you drunk, but what does it do to you? It harms you. So will you choose water over wine? In other words, will you make the choice to do something that's not going to be as good at the moment, but good for you in the long run? Wine will get you drunk, but it ain't going to heal you. Water may not taste as good as wine, and it definitely is not going to get you the buzzed feeling, but it's also not going to make you throw up. It's not going to make you sick. It's not going to kill your liver. So the whole song is about choosing to grab the wheel and drive. In other words, take control of your destiny and your life and stop letting others take the wheel. That's why if you listen to Carrie Underwood's Jesus Take the Wheel, it may sound great, but what they're basically saying is let somebody else drive for you because they know better. Really? Nobody knows you better than you. And if you allow somebody else to drive, you better hope they know where they're going. You better hope they are going in a direction that benefits you. It's your choice, ladies and gentlemen. I really hope people start making choices because, like a Rush song said, and I've said this so many times, that there is messages in songs, in movies, and TV shows, if you just listen in, that if you choose to not decide, you still have made a choice. So don't think, if you sit back and be safe, if you're afraid to say anything, if you don't want to rock the boat, if you don't think you're not going to get consequences in the long run or in the future for your lack of effort because of fear or whatever you hold yourself down with, don't be shocked at the outcome that follows down the road. Again, if you were in a car that's headed off a cliff and you choose to cry and pray and feel bad and feel depressed and feel angry and you're dumb enough to stay in the car, well, as it goes over the cliff, don't yell at God, don't yell at the car, don't yell at the person who made the car, don't yell at the person that put it in that direction, yell at yourself for not being smart enough to get the hell out. Or slam on the brakes, or turn the wheel. In other words, take control of your life. Think for more than what is in front of you at that moment. Think about the consequences of your actions and the consequences of your inactions. Both will create a path. All paths can be changed unless you sit in that car and let somebody else take the wheel and tell you where you need to go. You better hope they take you to a good spot. And all you have to do is, like they say, by their deeds you shall know them. Is the world becoming more unified? Is the world becoming more loving? Is the world becoming more enriching? Is the world making you happier? Is the world making you healthier? Is the world making you friendlier? And if you cannot say yes to any and all of these questions, then you are being steered in the wrong direction, at least for you. Now, many people who will profit off of your lack of doing anything are counting on you to continue to be afraid, to believe everything that you are told, to never question anything, to take a law at face value, even if it is something many years later people will look back on and see as wrong. And those who stood up are martyrs because most people will never do anything to help them. And some people are willing to end their own lives for what is right, even when everybody else got out of their way for fear of being involved. You get what you give, ladies and gentlemen, which means if you give nothing, don't be shocked that you get nothing. I'm here to tell you a different way to think. I'm not telling you how to think. You don't have to believe a word I'm saying. You may not even like it. You could sit here and roll your eyes. You could sit there and say, I'm just watching this because I'm bored and there's nothing else on. Or you can take this to heart and say, you know what, maybe I should question things. Maybe I should stand up for what's right. Maybe I should, instead of walking by and letting somebody be hurt, I make a stand, even if it means I get hurt in the process. Otherwise, what is it that we're here for? Are we here to live or are we here to survive? Because right now the world is teaching you how to survive. But you're definitely not living. So if you're not happy with what's going on in the world, you ask yourself, what have you done to change it? And if your answer is nothing, regardless of what excuse you make, don't be surprised that because the world is full of light and magnetism, that what you put out is what you get back. And the world is a reflection of you. Because yes, I'm frustrated. But you know what? I will survive through this. No problem, I will survive through this. I've survived through everything. I've almost died 7 or 8 times in my life. Back in November, when I first moved here to Florida, I had an ambulance have to carry me into the hospital because I was dying of a breathing disease that no one knew what it was. Wonder what that could have been, if it was that. I no longer fear death because it's just the transference of your soul. When you lose the fear, you'd be amazed at how many things will come your way. Those in power can only control the weak, the needy. They can't control the people who can fend for themselves, who can think for themselves, who can do for themselves. Why do you think they want to put the fear in you? Why do you think they want you to not work? Well, if excuse me, you can't make money, who are you going to rely on to give it to you? Who's giving out checks all this time? You think they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart, or they think they're doing it to program you to get used to being lazy and not work and get free money? Ever hear of socialism? So, you can let Jesus take the wheel, or you could take the wheel yourself, because that's probably what Jesus, if you believe in Jesus, or Jesus was real, and again, I'll leave that up to you, that's probably what Jesus would want. Because do you think Jesus wants to drive everybody's car for him? Because if that's the case, why create man? If God's job and God's only son's job is to drive your lazy behind around, then what was the purpose of creating you? Maybe they're driving you around because they're hoping one day you'll be big enough to drive yourself. That's all I have to say. I wish everybody luck. I wish everybody happiness. I wish everybody love. Again, my video will be basically ghost banned. Probably 200 or 300 people out of 47,000 will see it. I'll earn no revenue, which is perfectly fine, because again, I'll say it again, I don't do it for the money, but it would be nice to get some of it. YouTube has screwed me out of probably tens of thousands of dollars with them ghost banning me for doing nothing more than speaking my mind and having the right to my opinion. And they're going to continue with all these agendas. So you can live your life being told what to do, or you can live your life doing what you want to do. But that doesn't mean you have the right to infringe on anyone else. But that's what they're doing to us. Other people are telling you how to live, where to go, where you can't go, what you must wear. Do you think that's real freedom? Just for a couple of crackers, a little handout that's going to go away real soon? What do you think's going to happen to all those people on welfare who've been getting for 6 months to a year all this free money and sitting at home doing nothing but partying? What do you think's going to happen when that gravy train comes to a halt? And all the jobs are no longer there because all the mom and pop stores that no one fought for are all out of business. And the only people hiring are the Walmarts in the world who are going to pay you minimum wage. If you're lucky. And you'll work long, hard hours, advancing nowhere. Look beyond the moment. You can live in the moment, but you can also look where you're headed. It's nice to know where you're stepping, but it also is nice to know where you're going as well. You can do both. One thing I will not do is look behind me, because that's where I've already been. You can't relearn what you've already learned. And if you waste your time relearning what you've already learned, then what are you learning? You're learning nothing. So either I am getting through to some people, or I'm wasting my own time. At least I know I made the effort and gave my all. Can you say the same? And if not, you can change that, or you can continue to do nothing and wonder why the world isn't giving you everything that you wanted. Well, you know what? If you're waiting for a handout, be careful the person handing it to you, because you think they always have good intention? Or do you think they're doing it because they make a heck of a lot more than you to keep you getting their scraps? That's not living. And I will never be that way. Thanks for listening. Have a great night, and I'll see you sometime soon.